All right, people, this is Block Party. I'm your host, Mike Wall. Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying, hit that subscribe button. Give us a little rating. Share us with your NFL friends, your Packer family. Check us out on the Process to Perform channel. Check us out on Andy Herman's Pack a Day podcast channel as well. So we're hitting the recap. The Packers lose to the Denver Broncos 26-34. We're going to have a ton of tape right ahead of this. Listen, and I show a ton of defense this time because, quite frankly, defensively, yes, we lose Micah Parsons. Yes, we lose Evan Williams, at least for one or two games. But the physicality, I think, at the line of scrimmage is what really kind of got my eyebrows up a little bit. I think when I watch this game again, I know that the Denver Broncos have a good offensive line. I think Miners is the best right guard I've seen in the league in a long damn time, and he's a phenomenal player. Every rep on every tape I've watched so far, you're just super impressed with that guy. But they played well. The Denver Broncos are a very good team, obviously first place in the AFC. And so this was a battle of good on good. But the Parsons injury, coupled with kind of some of the struggles you maybe saw at the quarterback position, and the lack of defensive line depth at the defensive tackle position in particular, losing our two starters from last year, not having Devontae Wyatt on the field anymore, and having some guys that we really like as pros, but just from a size standpoint, the reality is like Wooden and Carl Brooks, those are not like big, massive space-eating defensive tackles, and they got moved off the line of scrimmage this game, and it's kind of something that maybe a trend that we started seeing a little bit more as Devontae Wyatt got hurt. So want to look into all of that stuff. We'll see that on tape. Offensively, there's a lot of good on that film, but there's also some things you're going to have to continue to work on. Look, the bottom line is like this team's only going to go as far as the offensive and defensive line takes them. The game's going to be won in the trenches. That's the foundation of championship football. It is now. The Eagles showed it last year, and I think it's going to continue to be that way in the near future, particularly as you see the 12 and 13 and 21 personnel packages starting to sprout up more and more in the National Football League, taking advantage of the size discrepancy at the linebacker position in particular. So let's check this tape out. Guys, this was a really, really good game with two really good teams. So don't get too down. Let's watch the tape. We'll get back with some listener questions. Okay, unlike usual, we're going to see a lot more defense today because there's just some things that are going to pop out. Obviously, Parsons getting injured and Evan Williams going out of the game make a huge difference. But, this is a good football team. They have a great offensive line. And this has kind of been what we talk about as far as, what are the things that concern you about, the Packers on defense. Really, what are we going to do from an interior defensive line spot after we lost TJ Slayton and Kenny Clark before the season started, and Devontae Wyatt, obviously, and halfway through the season, you got some issues. And one of the things you can just see here from just a reality check is like, you play a good offensive line. Look what happens to this. I mean, this is an absolute, it's a highway robbery, man. He could still be running backwards. He's literally got knocked 10 yards. The defensive tackle got knocked 10 yards off the ball. There's nothing to be done about that. Now, the problem is you got only 6 in the box. I think they bring in their 7th here, and they bounce the other guy out on the orbit or the ghost motion. So you're really playing against a 6-man box, and you just see Meinerz, who's I had no idea he was he's the best guard in the league as far as I can tell, but he absolutely mauls people. McGlinchey doesn't even come off on the backer, unnecessary. But if McGlinchey comes off on the backer, there's probably a touchdown. Early. That's the kind of movement they're getting. That's insane. And we're not limited to one play, and that's what you got to start thinking about as far as if you're Goody or LaFleur and trying to figure out what are we going to do on this interior defensive line. Here's another play, and I usually you don't show the sidelines here, but you just have to see. 94, Carl Brooks is getting, they got a double team, fair enough, but they get moved off the spot, and you're getting up to your safety. Okay, so what's interesting here is you got Javon Bullard coming. He's playing, your slot corner here. And they actually ended up putting him in the count. So we got the safety, the left guard in the center actually pushing here where they should be pushing to this hole, which is where Evan Williams is going to show up. So they got it all blocked, and they really don't need to block Javon Bullard. But they keep him in the count, and Bullard just ends up flowing outside. Williams guns on the barrel, and he's playing out. Whether it's the Broncos' mistake or just something that the Packers have seen on tape to get a free runner on it, it's a fantastic job. But for just looking back and being honest, this kind of movement on a downhill run is just really, really tough if you are actually going to this guy, and you look at the backside and you're here, and obviously they got a little twisted in the backside here and ended up, Wooten should have probably made this play. But good play by our guy, Evan Williams. Hope he's back soon. They've had a couple successful runs. They get us in single safety. Escape the pocket. Get a holding call. I think the only reason I put this on here is I think this is the first, and it turns out that unfortunately the last holding call that we'll see from anybody get on Parsons here. And, of all the holding calls he probably could have gotten during the year, this is one if you're an offensive lineman, you're like, what do you want me to do? Like, guy's leaving the pocket. But we finally got one just in time. Here we go under center again. Got our 3 linebacker look, base defense, little toss play, and I thought this was too easy. You usually see Nixon's doing a better job playing outside leverage here. Getting outside and holding the edge. Get blocked here. The 3 technique, I'll show it from the end zone, is just, that Meinert's guy is just stealing candy. Show it again. So if you can block this 3 tech, and then end up getting like an easy double here, he doesn't play outside leverage. You should got to go right now on the backside without the middle linebacker. But if Meinert's can get that easily on your 3 tech on an outside toss, you're going to have a long day. Penalty, we got a 1st and 15. They run their jet, and you just see, Cooper's flat foot reading this thing. Just reads it late. Parsons doesn't see it. And they're running 45 across like they're running split flow. Great stick at the end here by McKinney, but easy yards really. Don't have to do, 10 people on the field don't have to do anything right for that to work. That's why you don't like zone drops, right? So we bring up pressure, and this is just called a zone pressure. And what am I doing? Bringing zone pressure off the slot here. You're going to drop your defensive end into the hole. He's going to try to rob something. I think they just bring this guy, like this guy knows more about route running than he knows about defending. And this is always what you have a problem with if you start dropping defensive ends. You do it as a mix-up, and hopefully you guys get home. But just never a big fan. All right, they take this in for the touchdown. This is trips right. And, this is one thing that everybody's got their deal. But the over-the-top rushes just in general, I just have never liked. And the reason I don't like them is because unless, first of all, it's given this guy a playoff. If you're just going to run over the top, it's giving this guy a playoff. Now, if he exits the pocket or he, for some reason, is at 11 yards, then, yeah, you can have a sack, strips that fumble. Your numbers are great, whatever. But you see the alternative here. The 3 technique decides to go inside to the A gap, right, which is his prerogative. But now the exit is so easy when you make this decision. And, pitch and catch, flat route, touchdown. Tough. We go gun. Trips left. And, easy little chip block on our nose tackle. Easy B block on the backside. You got both guards up at the second level with no problems. Safety has to make the play. I mean, it's tough football here. You can almost see it almost feels like nose tackle's just not, he's like reading, he's not taking a step or anything. It just really gets out-quicked by the right guard in the center. Backside, they do a great job of getting around 91, stopping momentum, getting up to Quay. This is something we're going to have to contend with moving forward here in the playoffs. They do double stick nods down here on the bottom. Double stick nods are just, stick, nod, and go. They got two of them. Got the outside receiver. Good pitch and catch. If you're watching Nixon, you see he just bites hard on the out route, which is probably, from a pattern recognition standpoint, was what he's kind of used to seeing here. These little things, little wrinkles in the game. Instead of running the same thing, we just change it up a little bit. Hope the other team's been watching too much tape. You got problems. Now, this is a running play. You can tell that based on where the running backs lined up in the backfield. They just decide they want to take advantage of the apex player here. They don't like where he's at, so they're going to block, throw the bubble. This is just a built-in part of the play. And we read it perfectly and just miss it. And I think this is the third and 4 play here. So see Bullard's getting in. So now it's 1-on-2 out there. It's okay because Carrington makes a great play. And maybe he's going for the pick here and just sees it late. Then they end up getting the first down. They end up scoring on the drive. It's tough. I show this play to just show you that I think McGlinchey gets beat on the line of scrimmage by Carl Brooks. Might be a leg whip there, actually, huh? Or a trip at least, it looks like. But you see the other D tackles here. I mean, you're just, Minor's just single arm pushing 3-4 yards off the line of scrimmage. You got a good double team up to Coop on the left guard and center. And you just, I'm just looking at this from a line of scrimmage standpoint. Something we got to think about is when it looks like that, you got problems because now you're in the backers area. Something we're going to have to really, whether it's a free agent or someone's just got to step up their game, something's got to change. And here's the other thing. I talk about these guys are coming into play. I think Enigbari is one of those guys chirping earlier before the game. And look, he's a tough guy, don't get me wrong. But Bowles just says, no, I'll check your whole card. Sends him going. When you talk, you got to always be on. That's a big thing. Can't go sleeping here. He went sleeping a little bit. Got caught napping. We got 2nd and 10. A little split flow. And Sean McGarry makes a good play. Sometimes we forget how good of a run defender he is. But, I put that in, let's celebrate how good he's doing, then also highlight, look, man, this is a bad double again. Like, you're getting this movement right here is insane. And I know that guy's elite, but you're getting some really good movement on that 3-tech. So this is one of those where you draw it up and, okay, you make some adjustments at halftime. We're not going to rush over the top. And you get everything you want, and then, son of a bitch, Bo Nix just ends up making a good play. You see the damn receiver comes all the way over from the other hash mark, gets his hand up, and ends up catching this ball. But we got the right idea. It just doesn't work out. Sometimes what you talk about, you draw it up, you make adjustments at halftime, whatever it is from a scheme standpoint, and then it's like, okay, well, we still got to win. Same idea here. They're not going over the top. I think that's Van Ness on the other side. He hustles on this play. Enigbari. I love how Enigbari right here wins right there with the swipe, and then he rips underneath, but now he presses the pocket. Now you got to release. Okay, it's like now you got to release out. Now we got to get something out of this guy. We see Van Ness hustling his ass off, right? But he's just going to be able to go down here, end up making a little late play right there. I don't know how he gets that ball through. Just kind of, this is where it seemed like the wind kind of came at everybody's sails a little bit. And so we got some tired bodies on the you're feeling that Mile High Stadium. Nice rush by Carl Brooks here. See, these guys want to put their hands up, right? Just left guard puts his arm out. He wants you to knock it down so you can do the counter. Brooks ends up getting up underneath and getting it anyways. It should be a hold, but he's not going to get that call. And Barry's pressing the pocket, does a great job winning. And he just doesn't have the juice to keep going. And then, how does that play happen? 2nd and 8. Down here at the bottom. Now, look, if your hands are down, this is just basic shit for me. I don't play corner. But if I'm playing corner against this guy who's clearly big and has all this surface area, like I want to get my hands to a place where I can punch hard. Like I need, I really want to jab, punch and extend, right? Stop him. That just felt like he's tagging off. I mean, I don't know shit, but like that just looks casual, right? Just throws this fade, and it's like, man, it just looked too easy. They isolate up top and Carrington, Valentine, and it's a great route. You just kind of weave it a little bit and then come back. So Carrington's got to look in, and he's got to look out and find him, and by that time he turns around. Get the guy out of the flat. Make sure this flat defender's out of the way. But look at the time he's got, because they decided to, again, you triple team this guy. It's like, well, the pocket's easy since then. And that's the question. Are you going to get more people out in routes against us now? What's that going to look like? I think this is where the wheels fall off. Parsons getting hurt. Yeah. God dang. It's tough. So, had an inside win. Hard upfield. Attacks that inside arm. Doesn't really even have to break stride. Yeah, it just gets hurt. And then on the back end of this, runs into 2 tacklers and spins out. Third guy, I mean, this is just not characteristic. This is a get off the field play. Man. Third quarter, 2nd and 15. 2-by-2 out of the motion. And this is right after Parsons' injury, and it just kind of, this is what life is like without Micah Parsons, right? I mean, just this is the reality. If you're not going to bring pressure, you're going to see a lot of perfect pockets. And so we're going to run up here. They bring the safety in here. Cut this thing. Sorry, they bring him out. Take care of that safety. Come underneath with the post route. But a lot of quarterbacks in the National Football League can hit their back foot, raise up 3, walk into this throw, and make it. This isn't rocket science for these guys. Going to have to find a way to get pressure, particularly in the face of the quarterback. Big 4th and 3 fade here on Valentine. And look, these plays happen, right? This is part of the football game. I think it's, who's at the disadvantage here? It's like the same thing as you're, an offensive lineman taking pass rush. The disadvantage is at the defensive back here. This is just a ballsy play. But again, this is not, this pocket is going to be damn near perfect again. It's like how we, and this is a quick throw and all of that. Don't get me wrong. Right? But that's a damn good pocket. There is nothing. There is nothing from here to here. He's got all the time in the world. He's got multiple guys open. But the point is, if you can step in every throw, all of a sudden you got a lot of good quarterbacks in the NFL. I put this play in there just because I want everybody. Sometimes I talk about this. I don't know if I visualize it. And this is a perfect visualization of what I'm talking about when I talk about how to run power properly. So, we're going to get a great double, okay? We're going to go through here, I think, and we're going to lead here, all right? And this guard, as he pulls, or block back, and this guard, as he pulls, he's going to see color. So instead of, sometimes we were doing this earlier in the year in particular, and this is one of the reasons we don't run the play as much, he would bounce outside of the color. This Miners just takes it right through the pressure, and Cooper just runs himself out of the play. And it's by design on both sides. Okay? So we see what I'm saying here. Now we got this great hip-to-hip double on Lucas Van Ness, and it doesn't matter where he is. He's out of the way. We got tight end up, and now you just got a straight shot, walled off everything over here. and you got the safety or the backside backer to make a play. And this is really what you want. Now, how do you make this different? Well, how do you fix this if you're the Green Bay Packers? You got a couple options. One, you send him like a damn missile and he blows this whole thing up. So he doesn't allow himself to be blocked by one guy or kicked out. He forces the back to bounce this to Cooper. And that's really the only viable answer given the way you're going to play this. And if you watch Bonito on the other team, on the offensive side, he does exactly that. He just is like, screw this. The guard is not going to get past. Like, this is the line of demarcation. You know, this guard is not getting past that, right? But he just comes in like a bat out of hell and just slams. I think it's into Belton. So that's one way to do it. And the other way to do it is, you know, you keep him wide and just create the hole, and then you're just going straight into this. But the most effective way, if you're going to play your defensive ends down the line of scrimmage, is like, you cannot, if you are coming down the line of scrimmage, then you have to force the back to bounce out to where your help is. We'll see it one more time. You know, you can see Van Ness is kind of, for whatever reason, he's just kind of, instead of just like, screw this, man, he's just kind of like fitting into this. And this is what we talk about from just a physicality. Is like, how do you want to do it? Do you want to be a missile, or do you want to fit into it? You know, be a missile. That's the Packers offense early on here. Get out to gun. You got the trip side over here. They're just going to run a little square out at about 10. You know, I don't know if anybody throws these out routes better than Jordan Love right now. The quick outs, the medium range stuff. He just, you can see what everybody's talking about. He kind of steps into this one a little bit, but, you know, throwing to the opposite side of the field from your hand. So your natural throwing, you know, right-handers usually throw better to the right and to the left. But throwing across your body like this, that distance, that accuracy consistently is great. You see the pass rush here early on is good. And one to grow. All right, so start with Jordan Love here. We're in trips, gun, early on in the game. And they're just going to run just a clear out. They're going to pick on I think this is Alex Singleton. They're going to run like the 10-yard out here. And this is just another good throw by Jordan Love. And Jordan Love's just becoming a hell of a quarterback. And, you know, I know this game wasn't meant to go the way everybody wanted to, but, you know, these throws you got to appreciate. Decisions, obviously. But you got a quarterback who can throw the ball like that, you're going to be in good shape. So early 3rd and 1 here, go I-backs, and they're going to run a quick toss. And Hufwanga, so early 3rd and 1, you got I-backs. They're going to run the toss here, little crack toss look. And they're just going to work straight up field here with a little double on the 4-tech block. I think they're going to go up, and they leave Hufwanga for the fullback. And honestly, that was a pretty big mistake, and it kind of set the tone for the game. The way he just comes in here like a damn missile. And just ends it. I mean, you just got to be ready to hit. But you can see he has no intention here of taking a shot at the running back, man. He's just setting the tone. And this is what I talk about when we talk about a physical football team sometimes. Sometimes you just got to set the tone, man. It's like Shorzy. Got to set the tone, boys. Got to set the tone. Turns into a field goal. Obviously knocks 81 out of the game. You see it from this angle here, man. It's just he's coming off the left side, and it's bad intentions. You got everything you wanted everywhere else too. It's a damn shame. But this is the kind of safety you're playing against. We know this in the days of the Niners, but low man wins. Oh, it's highlight material. Tough. Got the under center. Free rusher. I talked about this. We talked about game plan, scheming, drawing wrinkles, creating plays, and then usually on these kind of looks, you got this is a shallow cross look, right? Whether we're running railroad with the back coming out, but you're running usually some sort of shallow cross thing. So that's going to be here, here, and then you got a guy posting up. So he comes in, and if Wonga sees that, it's like, all right, I know what route he's running. He just bangs this thing back out, and this is just play design. And you see he's one of the better safeties in the league, just gets beat bad. And this is, has touchdown all written all over it, honestly. Better throw, he stays up, whatever. But when we talk about scheme versus, winning your one-on-ones, the reality of that, like what that entails. This is scheme winning, and it happens a handful of times a game. All right, we got a 1st and 10. Look, here we go. Bunch, 12 personnel, motion over. Want to run a lead. And we had some good runs early in this game. Thought we held up against what I think is a really good defensive line. They stay in that 5-2, obviously, in 12 personnel and 1st down. They go by down the distance, maybe more so than just straight personnel matching, but they got a double team over here with our left guard and left tackle. I think Aaron Banks does a great job of just keeping, all you're doing is trying to be a bumper here, be body presence, right? And then you can go attack your linebacker. We got a double team here. And obviously a lead blocker with that backside fullback, but a couple good blocks here. Great body presence. Obviously, you don't know that you think you're actually winning that matchup, but watch the crack block here on Dre Greenlaw. And then Banks gets 49. A little kick out here. 192, but that Greenlaw block really, what a job done. Under center, in their 12. Another good block. Block is, so now they're in 12, but see it's different down the distance, so they'll go to their nickel look. You got to feel like you have to be able to run the football. 12-man personnel, 7-man on line of scrimmage, 9 people in the box effectively, and they got their 6. Like, you got to be able to run the football here, and we do. This is the give take. This is what Vance Joseph, defensive coordinator for the Broncos, he wants to match up by down and distance, much more so than personnel. We get a good double here. We got really 2 good doubles. But the important one on 99, Zach Allen. Ty Smith in a bind. Zach Tom does a good job getting up to the second level. And we got, these are really, really good runs against a good football team. So we go 3rd and 14. I know we had the penalty. And they declined it. So I think we had 2 penalties on this drive. One of them was for illegal man downfield. It was kind of a BS call. Then we declined the second. I think maybe one of them was on Walker. But what a ball here by Love. You see they split Jacobs out all the way outside. The tackle. Kind of one of those interesting routes. And you're on Greenlaw. He's probably a smart guy. He's thinking, like, I got to know that he's running this little pseudo wheel here. But great throw and catch. Really good, start to this game. Effectively, you're saying early on in this game, Packers look like offensively they're going to be able to move the football. Run of the year so far for Josh Jacobs, and predicated really on Romeo Dobbs does a good job communicating outside here on who they're going to block. Watch this early on. He's got the point. Watch him coming down. Who we got? Yep. Okay. Do a great job here on the, I'll show this on the end zone copy. Do a great job on the nose tackle. And look, this is the 3rd and 4 play. And the reality is the Denver Broncos blew this safety rotation. They blew it. We got a Fungo coming all the way from the backside here to fill in and avoid where they don't have. These backers both take this play side. You'll see it from the end zone. There's just nobody home. But that's what happens in football, especially when you have motion. We saw that they had a hard time kind of dealing with some motion plays earlier on in the game, and this is certainly one of them. You watch this now, it's like seems pretty obvious. Okay, so we're in 12, take a better angle here. So you see they're going to plus over here. He's going to go backside on this double team. He's going to stay home, and there's just nobody home here. Fongo has to come all the way over on the other side of the football to try to fill this as they motion over. And we saw that the Broncos had a hard time with motion early on in this game, really took advantage of here. You see he just runs away from Wafonga. I hope I'm saying that name right. He's a great player. But great play for the Packers. We've got a 3rd down, 1st and 10. And this is where kind of the wheels fall off here. So we go under center, and we're just going to try Defensive Player of the Year. What's that? It's that quote from Knight's Tale. You've been measured, you've been tested, and you're found wanting. Whew. Dude is unbelievable. You know, I think this is a first down play. So this isn't, quite a long punt, but it really changed the momentum of the game, I feel. I think the Broncos came down and scored on this one, and then they scored in consecutive drives, but he's just a special player. You can't you like that matchup against 95% of the corners in the league, but he's just not one of them. So this is just poor play design. And what I mean by that is they're going to motion in to take care of here, and they're going to ask him to block back with no hinge. So we got double pull. And so when you double pull, 97 can just follow your tackle, and you're effectively picked because it's not like you can go back and run into either of those pullers. So they're going to get the double here, and they're going to go the lead, and they're going to go the wrap. So like they have this play, but they're going to get beat by the backside receiver here, and they're going to get beat here. And it's like, this is a play that you drop on paper, it looks good, but this don't work in real life. Dre Greenlaw has something to do with it. And you just watch, when you miss Tucker Kraft and you talk about all this, it's like, hey, if this guy's in your gap, you're supposed to block him, And he just, for whatever reason, just late, I guess. But had a cross, we call this a car crash. You want to get your hat across, get a car crash right here. Don't let him slip underneath. Dre does a great job of getting squall. He's a great linebacker. Got a 3rd and 10 look here. A little 2x2. And they show man with the motion. So you got what you want, and you just got to figure out who's coming. So Sean Ryan's got to pick one of these two linebackers. Everybody else is in man. We're good. We're good. We're good. Probably assuming we're good here with man, so they're probably going to go to the guy on the right. And they end up running a little stunt here. Down, down, all the way around. And if you're just being honest, in these plays, they go down, down, around like that with a linebacker in the A gap, which they do here. You should be able to plant throw. You should be able to get a ball. There's a couple things that happen in this game or in this play. One, we got a faller. We're going to end up having somebody wide ass open here. But center ends up getting beat up the middle, which happened a couple times later in the game. Not the center necessarily, but just middle pressure. So 98 just presses the hell out of Sean Ryan on this little stunt. He just presses the hell out of him, and then so he's able to release inside. Running back's kind of out of place now. He could release right now and make, at least give a check down. Greenlaw's probably going to get him early, but he doesn't. So now you're working around for your life. Tough sport. All right, we got a 3rd and 4 down here. I just want to put this play in because I thought it was a phenomenal throw. We got the stick on the outside, and they just run the slot fade. What a ball. We're still in this game. Be careful there. Throwing 49 right at Jordan's feet, but it's all part of the game. Good contact. Obviously, backup right tackle in. Nothing's easy now. I said good pickup. I was wrong. That is not a good pickup. You got to take the fight to him. Say a quarterback gets hurt. Talking about here, man. You got to be the hammer, not the nail. We don't like catching in pass pro. Don't want to catch. That's catching. But great throw. Absolutely great throw. 4th quarter. 2 backs in the backfield. Just gets pressure in his face. I think that might be Zach Allen, who's a hell of a good pass rusher from the interior. At the D tackle position, man, these guys they got some really good players on that line. 4th and 10. I think this is a sack, and yeah, I mean, these are tough. Got another interior pressure. I think Banks maybe gets walked back by Zach Allen. Here, yeah, and you're trying to get set, and you gotta You got a new right tackle out there. It's not, he's going to make that edge a little bit shorter, so you just don't feel comfortable backing up. You see Rasheed Walker on the other side is doing a pretty good job of just trying to stay in front of that guy so he goes back inside. If you get Benito to go back inside, you feel pretty good about yourself. But Zach Allen really gets the pressure here, I think, over the left guard, and he's a hell of a good player. That's the reality. And one of these guys you can't double. They decide to go to the other side. He just gets good pressure. Pressure equals sacks or picks. All right, so as you can see, like this is a physical football game, and I know it started at the beginning with some guys chirping on the sideline. I think it was Rashawn Gary started that, and Enagbare was involved. And look, I think, quite frankly, Rashawn Gary and Enagbare about that life. Like, if those guys are two of the guys that are chirping, I got no problem with it. If they were my teammates, I'd have their back. I'd be, you'd be in that ring because I think those guys are about it. My question is, how many guys on the team do they got to bring along, and how many guys on that, like who's the train, who's the caboose there? Like, how many guys are part of the caboose category? How many guys are part of the train? Who's pulling? Who's getting pulled? Right? On the Broncos, it looked like they got a ton of guys in the train station, and there was from the jump, just a physical difference, I think, in the style of play and what they were doing before and after the snap. So that's my 2 cents. That's been a topic that we've tackled on this and other shows many times. Where you get that from? Is it the players? Is it the coaches? It's a question for maybe another day. But let's get into these listener questions, guys. As always, really, really appreciate everyone coming in with their questions. I'll get here. I'm trying to get to the first ones. Okay, here we go. It says, Mike, we need some take care of your mentals. Mike, we need some positivity, man. Tell us these guys are going to beat the Bears on Sunday. These guys are going to beat the Bears by stopping that run game first and foremost, which is going to be tough. We talked about the defensive tackle issue. We talked about the issue with Micah Parsons not being there and not really having anybody they need to game plan on defense. Now I'm talking about Ben Johnson, the Chicago Bears. Ben Johnson being maybe the preeminent, play designer in the National Football League right now. Jeff Athley has a big task in front of him because we saw it last year without Parsons. Pre-Parsons, Jeff Hafley, what do? We brought a lot of linebacker stuff, and we showed that Quay Walker and Adrian Cooper were really, really good at that, and I think they continue to be good. I think the issue you have to look at now is, the Bears like to line up in 12 and 13 personnel and run the football. Okay, we can bring in our third guy and do that. They can do some play action off that. You're not going to have the same kind of rush problem that you're going to have the rush issues or protection issues that you would with Micah Parsons. The question that I always ask in this situation is, like, if I don't feel like I got to chip out or, bang out on both sides, have a tight end and a running back stay in because I'm not worried about, the pass rush, I can get more guys into routes. And if the more guys I got into routes, they might just be underneath stuff that might be dragging linebackers in, might be dragging flat players in and opening that middle of the field, or they might just allow those checkdowns to happen. But the bottom line is, the more routes that go out, the better it is for the quarterback. And so you always have to think about it. It's not just getting to, like, Caleb Williams from this standpoint. It's like, how many other guys do you have to cover? How much longer do you have to cover the guys that are going out because you don't have that pass rush? I think that's going to be a real problem. On offense, I think it's really simple. You got to win at the line of scrimmage, which I just don't think the Bears have a great, front four. Particularly when they're three linebackers are out. When you look at their box seven guys, I know they're really good at turnovers and everything, but you look at their stats, like, they're not good at stopping the run. They're not particularly good at stopping the pass. They're not good in sacks. Like, we should beat them up front. If you beat them up front and we have really kind of error-free play at the quarterback position, I think offensively you score all the points you want to score against this team. The error-free thing is really difficult, not because of Jordan Love, but because the Bears are built and they believe in their ability to take away the football. Shepard asks, who improved the most, at least during the season? What could they have done differently? That is such a big question. We might want to save that for, like, the end of the year. Let's try to be positive. I've seen some real improvement from Aaron Banks. I think a lot of it's just from injury, and then starting out with a huge expectations, big contract, questions about why you came in and replaced a left guard. It was a really good left guard in a new situation and environment. I think that he is continued to play better. I think Sean Ryan's played better as he's gotten used to the center position. I'm hoping that maybe we found our right guard. Not that everything's copacetic in there right now. It certainly needs a lot of improvement, but you kind of see those guys starting to roll in the right direction. And again, that Denver Broncos defense is really, really good. So there was some good run blocking there I highlighted in the tape, but that is a very, very good team. Obviously, Evan Williams, even as good as he was last year, I think he's been better this year. I think him being out right now is a big deal. Let's see, who else could we just heap some praise on? Christian Watson. Unfortunately, he got hurt yesterday, but you just see, I think he took that next step as being that true number one receiver. I think his route tree's expanded. I think the menu is. I could Tucker Kraft. I mean, God bless America. Can I name somebody who's not injured right now, who's just really stepped up? I think Quay Walker. I think Quay Walker is the guy, maybe of all those guys, I should have said first, where you're going into this year and didn't get his fifth year picked up, and he's been. There's been some parts of his game that you just don't love. And this year, I think he's just played absolutely lights out. And I don't know what his statistics are. And he hasn't rushed the passer as much as he did before. But I got to tell you, he's been just a joy to watch. You can tell the leadership. He's the play caller. He's getting everybody the communication before the line of scrimmage, the confidence, the way he attacks blockers, the way he attacks the football, his instincts. It just feels like they let him loose this year. I think you accumulate information, you rep it out, you see it, you put it in your Rolodex, and all of a sudden, 1 year, I got it. And it just feels like he's got it now. So maybe that's the guy. The guys that aren't doing, better, I don't want to call them out on this show. Maybe we'll do it in a later show. But guys, if you're struggling, it's always got to figure out why you're struggling. Do you feel that the task is you're being asked to do something that's just not possible, or not possible by you, right? If it's not possible, then you got a problem. If it's not possible by you, then you got to get better. How do you get better? You got to work on stuff. If they're not working on it with you, you got to work on it by yourself. Got to find a mentor. Got to find somebody that can help you kind of get better at that part of the game, whether it's your technical game, whether it's how you recover, whether it's understanding film, et cetera, right? So if guys aren't playing how they want to play, it's hard to change in the season. It's not impossible. And if you have the mindset that you do want to change, you're willing to change, put the work in to change, certainly you can get improved during the season. But kind of bridging that gap, jumping over, getting over that hurdle or crossing that bridge mentally is tough, man. I can tell you, I've been on both sides of that. Sometimes you're in a rut, you can't get out of it. You need a little bit of a break. Other times it's I know exactly what I need to do to get better. Work on it. A couple weeks, you see a huge change. Charlie Bergeron says, I know he's nowhere near Bakhtiari level, but is Rashid good enough, consistent enough to be a long-term answer at left tackle? Look, I think the answer is yes, because of the offense we run. He has not played to be your contract year. I think he would have he'd like some plays back, right? He'd maybe even some games back. I think when you're an offensive lineman, you kind of think of things this way. I can have bad plays. I can't have bad games. So I can play 72 snaps and I can have 2 bad plays. Those could be sacks. And if that happened every time, I'm going to get benched. I'll be at the bus stop, right? I'll be hanging out at the bus stop with the grandma, reading the newspaper. But if I have 2 bad plays a game and I have 70 good plays, I can say I had a good game, 2 bad plays. If I start having 7, 8, 10 bad plays, I'm under 90%, and all of a sudden I'm not having a good game anymore. And when I start having bad games, or if those start accumulating, then my value goes way down. And I haven't done the math on this, but I think Rashid has had enough good games where you're okay, he can be the guy. For whatever reason, whether it's yesterday, he gets a couple penalties, it's he's downfield. That's not his fault, right? But his name gets called out, so everybody thinks oh, it's too many. And then I think right after that, he had a holding call or something like that. So when those things happen, it feels like he's getting dumped on, or it feels like the world's dumping on him a little bit. But the reality is, he can play a little bit better, and he's still got some development to do. But I do think he's the answer at left tackle. In particular, I think you have you potentially have needs at other positions, depending on what you want to do with Sean Ryan, depending on what you want to do with the right guard position. If you want to fortify and get somebody, just a real stud on the interior offensive line. I don't know if the answer right now to go shopping for is a big time left tackle, because I don't know if it's being addressed. I'm sure somebody's it's actually the next question. When do we start giving Morgan left tackle reps? I don't understand the concept where a person, the hardest position on the offensive line is left tackle. So if somebody's struggling at right guard, I'm not saying he can't play tackle and it's not his natural position. I'm not saying that. But the idea that you're struggling at right guard and then you're just going to step in and you're the next left tackle because you were a first round draft pick. We've talked about this before. Not his fault. Not his fault where he got drafted. But the idea that you're just going to step in and go because you're a first-round draft pick is, like, to me, is crazy. And now, listen, I hope that if they decide to let Rasheed Walker walk and he makes a big contract somewhere else, and they give the starting job to Jordan Morton, which they will be giving it to him, I hope he kills it. Like, I hope he kills it. I hope he's the best damn left tackle in the National Football League, right? But the reality is, like, that would be a very unlikely scenario. And that is a tough position that is going to stretch you. And, your technique has to be just so spot on. And there's so many different things they can throw at you from a look standpoint. You're going to get multiple pass rushers during the game. They got a lot of space. How much do they want to help you to make you look good? When you bring in a young guy, a lot of times they're going to chip, bang out. They're going to give you help every play. While it might look good statistically on PFF or whatever one of the those Yahoo websites, like, does that really help the offense? So there's just a bunch of stuff that goes with that I don't want to presuppose. I think Rasheed Walker is doing exactly what is required of him. I think there's been games where he could do a little bit more. What type of Tyler, great question. What type of dark liquor should I be drinking to numb the pain? Always whiskey, usually scotch. Am I crazy for thinking they can weather the loss of Parsons by leaning more into sim pressures and games with the front four, because it feels like it's the only thing they've been doing up front all year has been making the other team play, or where's Wahle with number one? Yeah, for real, that's a great question. And we talked about it last year when they didn't have Parsons. What do? They bring linebacker pressure, and Quay and Edgerrin Cooper are really, really good at linebacker pressure. Isaiah McDuffie had a real successful game a couple weeks ago starting for Quay against forgot against which team, but I mean, just murdering the running back on the way to the quarterback. So I know they can do that. Historically, they've shown they can do that. Now, sim pressure is talking about, showing 8 and dropping 4, showing 6 and dropping 2, simulated pressure, not really bringing a different 4 than you think, and not maybe necessarily the 4 down lineman. Yeah, that's always a possibility. I think, part of the problem with me in that is, like, I would rather bring 5 or 6 and play man on the backside. Or some kind of match zone on the backside, because, like, when you drop zone, like we did with Anibari yesterday, and, like, receiver just ducks inside him and gets wide open for the first down. It's like, it's not his fault. That's not what he's good at. Like, he should be rushing the passer. So I want to bring the guy, like, I want guys to do the job they're supposed to do as well as they can. Now, if you got a linebacker who can rush the passer and you can add that to your 4 down lineman, I love that, right? If you got a safety who's a real, sneaky guy, can rush the passer, you want to add him and drop a linebacker because he knows how to drop in coverage. I love that. But if we start, bringing 6, dropping 2 on the backside with a fire zone, it's like, for me, I mean, you got to do it every once in a while, but I'm not a huge fan. I don't actually. A dog on the couch says I don't actually have questions. It just kind of sucks. Some game seasons are like that, rough. You know what? Here's the thing, and I kind of mentioned this on Andy Herman's show. Sometimes it could feel like in the locker room, just say it out loud for the audience. Like, okay, so I lost Tucker Kraft, was our best offensive player. And what I mean by that is, like, most effective non-quarterback player on the team. At the time he got injured was Tucker Kraft, yards after catch, everything, spark plug, do it in the blocking game as well. Micah Parsons gets hurt. Christian Watson looks like he's not going to be bad, but he gets hurt. Evan Williams has been the best player in the secondary, arguably, if not definitely, and he's out for 1 to 2 weeks. I know we've got some other guys that I'm just, Elton Jenkins, it was just kind of a whole weird year with him, and now he's hurt. That's been bad. We have a really good starting lineup almost of injured guys right now. And sometimes when you're in the locker room, it's like you're looking around and you go, like, man, we're losing the wrong guys. We're losing a Parsons. We're losing a Tucker Kraft. We're losing a Christian Watson. We didn't have our first-round draft pick for a number of games. We didn't have Jaden Reed for a number of games, who's our number one wide receiver for the last 2 years. So sometimes you start scratching your heads like, how are we going to make this work, right? But then, if you're in that locker room, you're in that practice field, and you see those guys working every day, and you see the work and the mentorship that the older guys are putting into developing these young players and the coaching staff, et cetera, then you feel like you really got a chance, right? And it's just, we're not there every day. We're not in those meetings. We're not at that practice. We don't really know what goes on. And it'd be interesting to see, like, how this team responds for sure. For sure. I don't have a question. Just want you to tell us what the past is success is with all these injuries. Like I just said, I think it's really tough. Jack. I think it's tough. Andy Herman asked the best question, which was like, he asked me if it doesn't go well, what do you say? If it does go well, would you learn? Well, if it doesn't go well, it didn't go well because you lost Micah Parsons. That's a big deal. You lost Tucker Kraft. It's a big deal. We don't know Zach Tom. We don't know, but all of these, like, you're losing major names that are like in their room are a tier above everybody else. Micah Parsons is at least a tier above anybody else in that room. Zach Tom, a tier above everybody else in the offensive line room. Tucker Kraft, a tier above everybody else in the tight end room. When you start losing those players, you're not losing role players. You're losing your stars, whether they touch the football or not. That's a recipe for disaster, right? But I'll say this again. In the National Football League are like 16 or 1,800 of some of the best athletes in the world. They are the absolute best players that came out of our youth system, our college football program. And they are, again, some of the best athletes in the world. So if you have these opportunities and you have these people in positions and you put them on a field, somebody's going to show up. And Enagbari is going to have 5 sacks in the last 3 games or something like that. A Luke Musgrave kind of gets his head right for the last 3 games and, becomes a viable blocker and very sure-handed and yards after catch. Jaden Reed gets back to, excels above his top form from years ago before he was injured. Jordan Love plays mistake-free football. These guys elevate their game because that's what they've been doing their entire life. So I do think people will step up, but there's always a reality between, people stepping up, what you can scheme, and then like we saw against the Denver Broncos, at any given time on the Denver Broncos, whether you're on offense or defense, I can make the argument and say there's 7 players on that team that are better than 7 of our players. There's 7 of their starters again on their defense that should beat 7 of our offensive players every time they play. They got Pat Surtain, they got Afanga, they got Zach Allen, they got Bonito. You start going to, they got Dre Greenlaw. You just start looking around like those guys are really, really all-world guys, and they're playing against guys that are good, but maybe not as good as them. So there's that reality, and it only gets more overblown when you get backups in. But this is why we love sports. What are those backups going to do? How are the coaches going to put them in a position to be successful, and then what are they going to do from a prep standpoint to be like ultra confident when they get on the field to play? Is there anything other teams need to be scared of with Green Bay's defense now? Secondary is already a weakness. Also, what time does the show drop? Thanks, 68 says Chuck. The show's going to drop Monday night, Tuesday or Wednesday on Andy's Pack a Day. Is there anything other teams need to be scared of? Scared of? No, there's no game plan necessary. There's no game plan for a specific player on this team anymore. 0. Micah Parsons was it. We could make the argument that you certainly need to know where Evan Williams is going to insert in the run game from a safety standpoint. You say the same thing about McKinley, but for whatever reason, Evan Williams feels like the more active player this year in the run game. But there is not another player you're going to game plan for. And I really do. I can't overemphasize what a big deal that is. Like, having a game plan for a specific player takes so much mental energy from the coaching standpoint when you're game planning. It takes so much energy and practice time and meeting time when you go through it. So that is a monumentally big deal that you cannot make up for. Guys can play at a higher level, elevated level with the new opportunity. They cannot get to the point where everyone's like, oh, we got to game plan that guy. I was like, I don't know if the secondary is a weakness. I know the outside, the guy, look, our outside, our corners are like, our safeties are elite. Like, if anybody says their safeties are not elite, they're crazy. Our safety room's elite. I'm sure there's a safety room I would take over our safety room, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. And our corners do what our corners generally, not yesterday, our corners tackle well. They're super physical in the run game. Love it. Our corners do what they're asked to do in the passing game. If you put a good receiver on a good corner, not named Pat Surtain or some of these other guys, like Pat Surtain's like next. Pat Surtain's a Hall of Fame top 100 player of all time, track player. That's how good he is. Let's just get that out of the way. Other good corners in the league get burnt. Other good corners in the league get balls caught on them. Other good corners, all this. That position's like playing offensive line. Like it sucks. Yet the other guy knows where he's going. He's running backwards. He's running forwards. You're running backwards. Like that's tough. So I don't hate on I don't hate on those guys at all. I think you can get exploited against good players if they have time to throw the football. That's the reality. I'd be more worried about the defensive tackle and the pass rush than anything else. Do you envision Halfley using Quay and Cooper to offset the loss in pressures? Absolutely. Great question. Cooper much differently last year when they didn't have a player Parsons. Yeah, I totally agree about the Cooper comment. Utilizing Cooper last year and showing what a big deal it was. Quay earlier in his career. So, remember earlier in his career when you put Quay, when you gave Quay an assignment like, hey, blow up the A gap, or you're rushing the passer. Like he was a murder. He murdered people, and now he can do it. Whether he can do that as well, but he's also just such a more naturally instinctive player now because he's gotten the reps. But those guys, don't forget, Quay Walker got to be Quay Walker in college. Like Quay Walker in college was a pass rusher. Third down, best guys on the field rush the passer. Georgia would send Quay Walker. So we have guys that can do. In fact, I'll say this again. Take Anigbar off the table. I just like what he does. I think he has splash moments where he beats good players. I don't feel as good about a single pass rusher on our team against like an offensive lineman as I do, except for maybe Anagbari, as I do as I feel good about Quay and Coop rushing on dogs, whether it's against a center having to loop or having to chase him, whether against a running back. I feel much better about that. Says we still have Doug says we still have 18 of 22 starters from last year's playoff team playing, plus add Watson. What do coach or players need to do in order to get the mindset they're still good? Look, we lost to the number one team in the NFL. Like, I think the biggest takeaway for me was you got to get more physical, consistently physical, enjoy the physicality, enjoy that physical part of the game. I've said that before in prior years. I don't know who brings that. I don't know if we practice in a manner that allows you to do that, or like is a proponent of you doing that, but I think the reality is that's exactly what you need to do. And if you're not doing that, you sometimes, whether it's the Eagles last year, you run up against the Broncos this year, you run up against teams that are just more physical than you, and that does give them a mental edge. That is not necessarily why we lost, but when you lose and you're in the locker room, you got to look yourself in the mirror. It's like they were more physical than we were. Youth ball, O-line, we're coached to keep feet moving like Pistons. It's your power source. In the NFL, is it ever good to stop feet and lean? Never good to stop feet and lean. Pistons are a bad idea. That's a bad coaching point, up and down like that. Like you're trying to offensive linemen train like elite athletes now. It's not like the 60s. So if you're training like an elite athlete, your body position, your profile, your base, your footwork, etc., should be like an elite athlete. It shouldn't be like this clod hopper, he's upright. I know NFL line coaches still do this. It makes me cringe and laugh at the same time. But they're upright. They don't have any hip power. They're stomping their feet. They move their hands when they run instead of keeping their hands tight. Like all this stuff is just quite frankly poor coaching. But just the idea of like having your feet stuck in the ground, that's terrible. That's how you get hurt. So one thing that was always a big deal to me is like no matter what's going on, I always want my feet moving. You just don't want to be like dum, 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 like you're banging a drum. TYM driver. Hypothetically, are there any out of work pass rushers that would be worth their time and money to add to the stretch? Or do you think next man up is a better option? Right now, I'd have to do research, which I'll just speculate I won't do. I would think next man up's the better option. I mean, who would you get? It's like if you're out of the league at this point and you didn't take yourself out early because you're worried about concussions, in which case you wouldn't come back anyways. You're probably out of the league because you're not making, you can't make it go. So, and I don't think you can trade for people now. I think there's rules in place, like if somebody gets cut. But I mean, there's so many good like vet pass rushers in the league. There's so many good pass rushers in the league now, but they just don't happen to be on Green Bay's team right now. The Parsons thing did feel like it was an all-in moment. Like, hey, we're going for broke this year. So for it not to play out the way you want is really tough. But that's what happens sometimes, man. It sucks. It sucks. Chris Butler asks, well, why does the team look so shell-shocked after an injury and game plans and adjusting? Is the fan perception or is there a lack of leadership on both sides to rally everyone to step up, or is it something else? Shell-shocked, you lost your best player. That happens. Emotional letdowns are a reality of the game. The deep ball to Pat Surtain picked off, and then they go down and score. Micah gets hurt. They go down and score again. Like, that's a really shitty sequence of events if you're a Green Bay Packer. If you're in that locker room, put everything you had into this season and this week in particular. People have lapses. People get punched in the mouth every once in a while. You got to come back. It's like, how do you come back next week? It really matters. So this is one loss. Again, you lost by 8 points to a team at home who's first place in the league. Like, let's everybody just. Brett says, could Coop play any edge and slide Hopper to his spot for obvious pass downs? Coop would get his absolute head beat in if he was playing against a tackle at edge rusher. I'm sorry. Just would not happen. And let's end it with that, guys. Like, I love it. I love it. I love the enthusiasm, but just because he can rush, from that stand-up spot and this and that, like, he's talented, but like, you put a 230 or 235 pound guy who's not a built, purpose-driven pass rush, like a Robert Mathis pass rusher, throwing that name out there. You don't put one of those dudes out there on the edge against like a Lane Johnson or like a Zach Tom. No, you're wasting your time. Why make two positions worse instead of one, right? Why make two positions worse instead of one? So that's a wrap, guys. Thanks again, all the Packer Nation. I love the questions. I love the comments. I appreciate all of it. If you're enjoying these breakdowns, please hit that subscribe button, maybe a 5-star review, maybe share it with another NFL fan. This is Block Party. I'm Mike Wahle, here to educate and entertain. Guys, enjoy the week. We will get a preview of this Bears game out before the week's over. See ya.